Welcome back to this month's US-250 podcast, where we explore the history of how we became a nation. Last month, we gave a brief overview of the beginning of the French and Indian War. Today, we're doing a deep dive.
Before we begin, we want to let you know that we try to find reputable websites that delve into this history because we want to give you accurate information. All website links are listed in the video description. Also, we will try our best to pronounce names correctly, but please forgive us if we mess up a little bit. We want to be respectful, but we also don't speak French.
Okay, let's get started. The French and Indian War was caused by severe tension and conflict between the French and the British. The war began over the specific issue of whether the Upper Ohio River Valley was a part of the British Empire and therefore open for trade and settlement by Virginians and Pennsylvanians, or part of the French Empire.
Behind this issue loomed an infinitely larger one. Which national culture was to dominate the heart of North America? Settlers of English extraction were greater in number in the coveted area, but French exploration, trade, and alliances with Native Americans predominated.
Spain, France, and Britain had fought a great number of wars for control over North America. Some of these earlier wars were called King William's War, Queen Anne's War, and King George's War. In these wars, the Native Americans were caught in the middle and were forced into picking sides. Some sided with the British, but most sided with the French.
A conflict between the two colonial powers over their rival North American claims was inevitable. But because their areas of trade exploration were widely separated, that conflict might have been delayed for many years, had not the Governor General of New France forced the issue.
In the 1750s, the area north of Albany, New York was primarily a vast wilderness. The English built a large fortress at the Great Carrying Place on the Hudson River. This would become Fort Edward. When garrisoned, it would also become the third largest settlement in North America behind Philadelphia and New York.
The French settled in territory north of the St. Lawrence River and into what would become western Pennsylvania and Ohio. Thus, the stage was set for these two great powers to clash over land, furs, and trade in this northern territory.
Although the French had a low presence in the neighborhood of the Allegheny River and the Upper Ohio River where Pennsylvania traders were concentrated, in 1749 the Governor General ordered Pierre-Joseph CÉLORON de Blainville to compel the trading houses in that region to lower the British flags that flew above them.
The traders, regarded as trespassers on French lands, were ordered to retreat to the eastern slopes of Appalachians. This directive did not have the desired effect, however, and force was applied in 1752 when the French sent a war party along with their native allies to attack and destroy the trading posts and the important British colonial trading center at Pickawillany on the upper Great Miami River.
Here's some interesting details about Pickawillany and the attack. In 1747, a group of Twitwi Miami Indians, led by Memeska, came to the junction of two rivers, the Great Miami River and the Laramie Creek. Memeska brought his followers to this place called Pickawillany to be closer to his new friends, the English.
Memeska was coming to Ohio to put distance between himself and his former French allies. For many years, the French had been the only game in town in the Great Lakes fur trade. However, growing dissatisfaction with high prices, poor quality, and short supplies of French goods led Memeska and others to look to the English as a more reliable source of trade goods.
It was not long after the move to Pickawillany that the Treaty of Friendship between Memeska's Twitwi and the English was forged at Lancaster, Pennsylvania. On the heels of that agreement came the English traders employed by a Pennsylvanian George Croghan, who established a trading station next to the village of Pickawillany.
Word spread quickly that English goods were now available at Pickawillany. This brought rapid growth to the village. Indians, not only the Ohio country, but also the Great Lakes region and westward, came to the village to do business. In 1750, it was estimated that the village numbered approximately 1,200 individuals.
The trading activity was not lost on French authorities. They viewed Memeska, also known as La Demoiselle, was a serious threat to their control of the Indian fur trade. Almost from the moment Pickawillany was established, the French started planning on how to destroy it.
During its short life, Fort Pickawillany saw much plundering of pack trains, murders, and prisoners taken by those threatened by its existence. On June 21st, 1752, a force of about 250 Ottawa Indians and French militia, led by Charles Langlade, attacked Pickawillany. Many of the Twightwee men were hunting, leaving the village occupied primarily by women, children, and a few older men. Also present were Memeska and his family. In addition, several English traders were present and working at their trading station.
The attack was so sudden that many of the women were captured as they worked in the surrounding cornfields. Others fled to the village stockade in hopes of protecting themselves. 3 traders were unable to flee and were forced to seek protection in one of the traders' cabins near the stockade. These traders quickly surrendered to the invaders without firing a single shot in their own defense. To save themselves, they told Langlade how few defenders were inside the Twightwee stockade.
A siege of the stockade was laid down, and the defenders were told that if they would but surrender the traders and their goods, the attackers would leave Pickawillany. Inside the stockade, with several defenders wounded and water supplies exhausted, the defenders agreed to the terms they had been offered.
5 of the 7 traders in the stockade were surrendered. Gunsmith Thomas Burney and trader Andrew McBriar were hidden and later escaped to carry the news of the attack to the English at Lower Shawnee Town, Portsmouth. One of the 5 surrendered traders had been wounded. As soon as he was seized, he was stabbed to death, scalped, and had his heart ripped from his chest and eaten.
Memeska faced a similar fate. The French saw him as the cause of most of their problems in Ohio, and the primary agent for the English. In front of his remaining followers, including his wife and his son, he too was killed, boiled, and his body eaten. The remaining traders and their captured goods were gathered and marched to Detroit. With this defeat, the Pickawillany thorn was at last removed from the side of the French.
The surviving Twightwee moved back to the protection of Kikionga. Pickawillany was not occupied as a village site again. After the removal of the Twightwee, the Shawnee eventually moved into the Miami River Valley in the late 1750s and began establishing a few villages in the region.
The attack at Pickawillany was followed by the capture or killing of every English-speaking trader that the French and their Indian allies would find in the upper Ohio Valley. These actions struck directly not only at the people of Pennsylvania, but also at those of Virginia.
When news reached Williamsburg, the colonial capital, that the French were driving out the English traders and building forts on the headwater of the Allegheny in order to consolidate their positions, Lieutenant Governor Robert Dinwiddie determined to act. In 1753, Lieutenant Governor Dinwiddie sent a young George Washington on a mission to contact Captain Legardot Saint-Pierre of Fort Le Boeuf to convince him to abandon it.
When Washington returned with the French commander's refusal, the governor sent him back with a large force.
The French and Indian War officially begins on May 28th of 1754, when Washington's men ambush a French scouting party, killing the commander, Coulon de Jumonville, and 9 others, as well as taking 20 prisoners. And on that note, this is where we'll end the history lesson for today.
Can you imagine being alive at this time? No person, whether native, French, or British, was safe. It was violence everywhere. Everyone was playing for keeps. Whether you're native or colonial, you're just trying to raise a family and keep them alive. I mean, it was a scary time.
A recommendation we have for you this month is the television show Hawkeye: The First Frontier, which aired for 1 season in about 1994 and 1995. It's rated TV PG and is about a woodsman named Hawkeye who meets a brave English woman trying to free her husband from the French during the French and Indian War.
Join us next time as we discuss the attack on French forces at Jumonville Glen and some of the battles, such as Fort Necessity. See you next time.